Hi everybody. I'm gonna make some multi-grain bread and I'm gonna use the quick cooker to proof it. And I'll post the recipe later. And this is actually gonna end up being probably 3 videos that I'll put together later. So you're tuning in right now to the first of what will probably be 3 parts. And this is the way to start it. And this recipe calls for bread flour. So I want to just talk to you a little bit about the difference between all-purpose flour and bread flour. Bread flour has more protein. You wouldn't want to use bread flour in cakes because it will not give you the nice light airy crumb that you like in a cake. But if you use all-purpose flour for bread, you can do that, but it may not have as good a texture and be solid. So I don't normally keep a container of bread flour on hand, but you can make bread flour. So you do have to then have vital wheat gluten, which is high in protein, that you can add to your lower protein all-purpose flour. So usually what I do is I just take a big bowl and I add the flour, just some all-purpose flour, and now you can get real scientific and look up the protein percentage, which is not necessarily the nutritional value on the package. You might have to contact the manufacturer. Honestly, you can just use 1 teaspoon of vital wheat gluten to every cup of all-purpose flour to make bread flour. So I usually make up a batch of it and then measure. Once I have it all mixed together, I measure out the amount I want so that, like, let's say the recipe called for 3 cups. I would have 3 cups of all-purpose flour and 3 teaspoons of vital wheat gluten, which would not be that much extra dry ingredient to affect my recipe necessarily, but I like to mix it together, then measure out the exact amount that I want. So now that I've got a substitute for bread flour, I can start my recipe. And this calls for 3/4 of a cup of old-fashioned oats. Probably can use quick oats, but I use the old-fashioned. And yeast, a package or 2¼ teaspoons of yeast. And by the way, if you're using active dry yeast, you should actually soften it in your water before you add it. If you're using, I'm actually using an instant yeast right now, so I'm just putting it in with my dry ingredients. And a teaspoon of salt. I like our adjustable measuring spoons because the little one goes from 1/8 to 1 teaspoon. And so bread flour, initially I'm going to just use 2 cups of the bread flour. And I do like to kind of whisk my dry ingredients together. And let's see. Okay, now the liquid, and the liquid is 1¼ cups of warm water. A 1/4 cup of soft butter, meaning room temperature, not melted. And a 1/4 cup of honey. And I do like to buy my honey locally if I can. We usually have somebody on the roadside that sells honey, but any honey will do. And just put this in your mixing bowl. If you have a stand mixer, that's fine. If you have to use a hand mixer, you'll need one that's a little bit more powerful since you're going to be working with dough here. So now that I have all my liquid in here, I'm going to put it with the mixer and mix it all together. And then as soon as that is all nice and mixed together, I'm going to be adding the rest of the flour. Excuse me while I read my recipe here. So I'm going to be proofing this in the quick cooker. So I'm going to be using the ceramic pot, and inside is a rack to hold it off the bottom. And I'm going to oil this, and this is our spritzer. You just pump air into it and you spritz, and then I'm just going to use the silicone brush to make sure it's everywhere. I like this better than buying like the aerosol. You just put any kind of oil, that you prefer. I use canola usually. So just oil the ceramic pot. Okay, so we have a gooey mess right now. I'm going to add the rest of the flour. And just let that incorporate. And you can see we have a gooey, messy batter. I know I've told you guys this joke before, but you know how they say that a good mom lets the kids lick the beaters and a great mom shuts it off first. But you really shouldn't do that, because my friend Sherry will yell at us and tell us that you should never eat raw flour. Okay, so it's a big gooey globby mess. I'm just gonna get it into the pot here. Hopefully all in one glob. And then we're going to put this in the in the quick cooker. With this just open, we're not going to put the silicone lid on. I'm going to choose the proof setting. I don't know if you guys probably can't see. You just turn the dial until the setting you want is lit up to proof, and then press start. So it's going to proof for 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and do the next step. So check back later for part 2 of the quick cooker multi-grain bread. See you later. Hi, welcome back. This is part 2 of the multigrain bread, and our first proof session has completed. So I'm going to take the dough out of the quick cooker. Instead of using a floured surface, I'm actually going to put a little shortening on my prep mat here. And I find it's less likely to change the texture of the bread. So I'm just going to spill this out onto the mat. And I'm going to let it rest for just a minute while I clean the ceramic pot. I'm going to clean and dry this and re-oil it or grease it. Now she's going to grease it. And then I'll put it back in the wire rack. The cradle, they call it the cradle. Now, before I took it out, I took another 2 tablespoons of honey and I heated it in the microwave for like 10 or 11 seconds just to make it more liquidy instead of so thick. And I'm going to put my dough back in the ceramic pot. And I'm just going to kind of gently shape it into a nice, neat little ball and plop it in there with something of a seam side down. Always be nice to your dough and talk to it and pat it and love it, hug it and squeeze it. Okay. And now I just want to brush this honey over the top. Again, this was about 2 tablespoons of honey. Got to be careful because, you know, your dough is still pretty soft. So just kind of pat it on there. And then I have another 2 tablespoons of the old-fashioned oats. I'm just going to sprinkle on top. That's what it looks like. I'm going to put it back in the quick cooker. I'm going to give it another proof setting, which is about 30 minutes. So till proof lights up, press start and come back in 30 minutes. And in the meantime, I'm probably going to get the oven heated up to 350 degrees. And I guess this is actually going to be 4 parts if you want to see the finished product. So come back for part 3 when I take it out after the second proof and get ready to put it in the oven. See you in a little bit. Hi, you're back for part 3 of what will be 4 parts on the multigrain bread using the quick cooker to proof the dough. It's had its second proof now, so it's ready to go in the oven, which is preheated to 350 degrees, and it's going to bake for 40 to 45 minutes. But I wanted you to see it before I put it in the oven, and then we'll come back again in 45 minutes for you to not taste it, but watch maybe me taste it. Sorry. So I'm going to be very, very gentle so it doesn't fall. And I'm going to take it out of the cradle. You can see how lovely it rose up. And I'm going to bake it right in the ceramic pot in the oven. And for 40 to 45 minutes, I'll watch it to make sure it doesn't get too brown. And then we'll come back. So come back in about 40 to 45 minutes to see the end result. Hi, this is the end of the multigrain bread. I used the quick cooker to proof the dough, and then I kept the dough in the ceramic pot that it proofed in the quick cooker, and I baked it at 350 degrees for about 45 minutes. And it's been resting here for about 10 minutes or so. So let's just see how it turns out. Here we go. Yum. You'll have to trust me that it's going to taste good, because I can't share it with you unless you come over, which you're welcome to do. So there you go. Fast, easy, no knead multigrain bread proofed in the quick cooker and baked in the ceramic pot. I'll post the recipe later. Bye-bye.